Good morning, everyone. Hope you are having a wonderful day. I'm Adnan Khalid, Head of Operations at Petra Insurance Broker, and your host for the day. In this webinar, we are going to discuss about cyber risk and how we can protect our businesses through cyber risk insurance. I would like to introduce our speakers for the day. Our main speaker is Korai Cyper, who is a senior cyber risk specialist from Chubb, UK. Uh, we have another speaker from Chubb who is looking after MENA region, Syed Izhar Hussain. And we have another speaker from Orient UNB Takaful, Taqir Ali, who is head of liability and financial line. Thank you so much, guys, for joining us today. We will start with what is cyber risk insurance. We'll give you a brief on what it is, and then we'll go forward. So cyber risk insurance will cover your business and will protect you from possible cyber attacks. And due to that, there could be fines and other stuff like the stuff which is you will have a financial loss, your business will be interrupted, and because of that, you can get a business loss cover as well with cyber liability insurance, cyber risk insurance. Sorry. So, what? How long this insurance exists? It's there from 90s, and as the time is passing, it's becoming priority for the companies and different industries. Since we are moving towards online and we are doing a lot of stuff online, it's very important that we should have this insurance in place. Most of the companies, they're having a huge investment in IT, and they have a very strong protection for their IT stuff and all. But they can have a cyber insurance and they can reduce that risk and they can reduce their cost. Especially SMEs, they can have this insurance and they don't have to invest that much on the protection. With this insurance, you can protect your business and you can save the cost on your structure. So that's pretty much about the key fact. Now we are going to talk about how in this time there are claims in the market, in the industry, and the world, different cyber claims. So I'll move to the next slide, and Taqir will be speaking about the potential claims. Taqir, if you can go ahead.
Thank you so much, Adnan. As Adnan already introduced me, myself, Taqir Ali, I'm heading liability and specialty lines in Orient UNB Takaful, based in Dubai. So as Adnan said, the technology, there is advancement in technology, and people are already investing maybe a lot of amount of money in their technology advancement. So still, let me talk about some key facts about the cyber losses, because as soon as we are, or as far as we are moving towards a technology advancement, those cyber criminals are also being very sophisticated, and they are finding new ways to tackle such technologies and to give us hard time on our continuity of businesses. So when we see cyber insurance started in early 90s until, in a decade into till 2016, the average losses from cyber crime was around $280 billion, which increased to, in less than 3 years, around $2 trillion. And if we see the facts of 2021, we can see that cyber crime worldwide may cost us around $6 trillion, which is a hell amount of money. So average cost of data breach was $4 million in 2016, which has been increased to $150 million till up till now. So let's and then if uh, okay, so there was a recent report. If we talk about that I was talking about worldwide. So if we see only MENA region, there was a very quite interesting survey from PwC. So from the MENA region, we in that survey it was found that Middle East companies, Middle East region is more prone to cyber attacks than anywhere in the world. Almost 85% of the respondents in that survey have suffered one or more than one attack, which is higher than global average of 79% all over the world. And companies in the Middle East also suffered larger losses. So they may have either lost their first 3 days of there was a business interruption with minimum of 3 days, or 56% of the people have lost more than $500,000 from those cyber crimes, cyber incidents. Okay, we in when we talk about from the MENA region, when we talk about particularly about UAE. So in UAE, there were almost more than 200 cyber attacks in first 8 months of 2020, and that is the data actually only from the Computer Emergency Response Team, which is one department of TRA, Telecommunication Regulatory Authority in UAE. So they have seen more than 200 cyber attacks in first 8 months of 2020, and in 2019 they were being handled 343 incidents, from which 117 were severe, 170 were medium, and 56 were low. And this is only the numbers which they have seen. Against that numbers, there was the data is still under process, that how much companies have lost from those incidents. Then if we can go to next slide, please. Okay, so when we see that there are cyber incidents, and the cyber criminals are being more sophisticated these days. So let us give some let us see some major claims which are all over the world, as well as maybe we talk about later about MENA region. Our other panelists will talk more about MENA region, as well as worldwide, how the situation is evolving. So when we see about cyber claims, let me give you some of the major incidents all over the world. So then if we go to next slide, there is one of very famous and very major cyber attack, which hit almost more than 300,000 computers all over the world. WannaCry ransomware attack, and the estimated losses from that only one cyber attack was around $4 to $8 billion all over the world. And one of most of the major companies, all over the world were being hit by that ransomware attack. Even they were so much sophisticated in their IT systems, including the French brand Renault, FedEx, German railway company even was hit by that particular attack. So we can see, then if we go to next slide, there is one of another very famous cyber incident all over the world, happened in June 2017, not Petra, which also and it was, as cyber criminals are being sophisticated, as I said. So NotPetya was even spread wider than WannaCry as well, and which the estimated losses occurred around $10 billion all over the world. And then if we go to next slide, please. Okay, when we have seen that ransomware attacks. When we talk about cyber incidents, we can see ransomware, we can see malware, we can see phishing, we can see privacy breach. When we go further, we will see different kinds of how the cyber risk is evolving. So from those attacks, one of very sophisticated attack is privacy attack. And Marriott was hit by that privacy attack in 2018, where 500 million customers' data was stolen and and was put on black web. So this may open, as Adnan said. Let me give you an idea. When we talk about cyber, so cyber insurance may trigger your first party losses, as just like your property. Your intellectual property is your assets, so it covers your assets. As well as in cyber insurance, you may have coverage of third party liability. A liability may arise from the data breach, from your customers, from your suppliers or buyers. Especially hospital sector is very much exposed to this particular fact, that they have very critical sensitive information stored in their system. So that if any criminal is having access to that particular data, that may create problem for the company. And regulatory fines is one another, as Adnan said, that regulatory fines is one of another factor. So that may bring regulatory fines from the regulators. And then if we go to next slide, please. My 2019. Okay, when we talk about that, how the as again and again I'm saying that cyber criminals are very much sophisticated, and they are finding ways. So even government is not saved, although they are spending a lot amount of money. In my 2019, Baltimore government held hostage from the ransomware attack, and that ransomware attack cost government around losses of $18 million. So their whole operations were closed from that cyber attack. So when we go further, we will see that how Koray will explain further that how cyber insurance may help us from such scenarios. Okay, we have seen some of the big losses, but let us see that few weeks. It's not only the big losses started from 2017, and it is more and more increasing day by day. I just wanted to highlight four or five very recent incidents, like whenever you are mostly you are opening news, you may now on weekly basis you see some of big cyber incident. IMO, International Maritime Organization, which is part of UNICEF, was hit in September by cyber attack. Then we have seen very recently CMA CGM was also hit, one of very its fourth biggest company in logistic industry. They were hit by cyber attack. Then and it's not only about one industry. It's either if it's service industry, it's manufacturing, it's law firm, it's shipping industry, it's hospital sector, it's hospitality sector. All sectors are very much exposed to such cyber incidents. One of very famous manufacturing sector, Haldiram's were hit again in September from the ransomware attack. And not only those industries, insurance people are also not, we also maybe don't have maybe sometimes solutions for that cyber attacks. One of biggest insurance broker, Gallagher, was being hit. They have announced that they are being hit by cyber attack, and they had to shut down their system maybe for I believe for 3 days. So we see that no industry is may say that they are not prone to that cyber attacks, considering sophistication in cyber criminals. And as per one of the reports I have seen, that cyber incidents may be one of the biggest disaster uh, after natural perils. Maybe it will be on second or third place in 2021 or 2022, which may be creating losses to the world from such incidents. So I'll let us, as we have seen those claims. So let us now more talk about how cyber insurance gives us protection from such incidents. I'll hand over to Izhar from here. Thank you so much.
It will be handed over to Cora.
Yes, no problem. By the way, can you all hear me loud and clear? Just making sure.
Yes.
Yep. Perfect. So first of all, thank you for having me on the panel. As Adnan introduced me, my name is Kware Saipa. I'm responsible for our cyber practice across Euro, Asia, and Africa regions, based here in London. And when we talk about cyber risks insurance, as mentioned earlier, the policy is made up of two elements, meaning both consisting of first-party coverage, which we mean is that the loss the policyholder themselves incurs as a result of a cyber incident, and also third-party liability coverage, meaning third-party damages taken by affected individuals or parties in the event of a cyber incident affecting the a policyholder. So starting off with the first party coverage, the way this policy helps to defend policyholders in the event of a cyber incident is, first of all, with the main one of the main insuring coverages is the data and system recovery for any malicious cyber attack or non-malicious cyber event. What we mean by non-malicious event is that if there is a human error when upgrading or operating the system, or if there is a programming error, these types of system failures as well, which have no connection to any type of cyber event, cyber attack, I should say, are also evaluated under cyber insurance policies. So it's not just for malicious hackers, but it's also for unexpected accidents and events which may occur. And as a result of these events, as touched on earlier, the insurance coverage also provides business interruption insurance to indemnify a policyholder for any loss of income they incur as a result of a cyber incident. So using the examples touched on earlier, for example, a manufacturing plant coming to a halt, or a professional services firm losing out on contracts and clients, or an e-commerce website not being able to transact, and the same goes for retail as well. So there's many applications of cyber policy across various industries, same with the utilities industries, the financial services industries, and so forth. Another part of the coverage is also the cyber extortion coverage, which provides coverage specifically for reasonable ransom payments as well as a mitigating cost to mitigate the overall damages a company suffers in the event of a ransomware event. And this is all coupled with incident response expenses, which consist of IT forensics expenses, breach notification costs, associated PR, and also legal advisory costs to speak to a regulator in the event of a cyber incident as well. So when we see a cyber incident happen, it can trigger various policy insurance agreements at the same time from one source of event. And the same can also be said for the liability covers as well, which provides privacy and network security liability, meaning that if there is a large data breach of either personal information or third-party corporate information of potential customers or stakeholders, any breach of the resulting breach of confidentiality could lead to third parties seeking damages from the policyholder. So the policy would then act to defend the policyholder against such incidents from taking place. So it is a holistic approach, although we have seen it become more mainstream over the years. I'll elaborate on that in further detail shortly. But this type of coverage, even though it has been around since the 90s, we still see, and we are seeing a significant increase in demand. We do see the majority of the market oftentimes underinsured in various segments. Can we move on to the next slide, please? So we want to take the chance to, not just explain what cyber insurance is, but where the market's also going. So as I mentioned earlier, we are seeing demand increase significantly, and that cyber insurance is becoming a more mainstream insurance coverage, meaning that similar to how a factory in previous years would buy property damage and business interruption insurance, we're seeing companies now insure their digital assets, because these are just as digital assets through cyber insurance, because these are just as important as the actual machinery used to manufacture goods. Without the SCADA or ICS systems to support and enable a manufacturing plant to operate nowadays, the machine is basically useless. So therefore, the digital assets are just as important as the physical assets, which is why we are seeing cyber insurance become a more mainstream product as opposed to a niche product back before 2016. Well, with that being said, as touched on earlier, we are seeing an increase in cyber claims and a change in sophistication as well. So as Turki touched on earlier, since WannaCry and not Petra, ransomware was always a concern, and historically it wasn't as sophisticated. Often back before, for the most part, it often consisted of individuals accidentally clicking links or downloading books or doing something they shouldn't have done, and that led to the company's network or a computer being encrypted, and the ransom amount was often very little, and the ransomware type wasn't sophisticated at all, meaning that the company was able to very easily revert to their backups and continue their business as normal. What we have seen over the last 2 years, specifically over the last 18 months, is that we've seen a significant increase in the sophistication of ransomware. And what we mean by sophistication of ransomware is that it's not the ransom amounts aren't as small as they used to be, and they're not resolved as easily. And just the way the malware acts is also quite different. So when the threat actors nowadays will use social engineering, phishing links to trick people into gaining access into the system. Once they've gained access into a system, we see them put a Trojan into the system to really understand what's happening with the business, to see how much cash a business has, to see if they actually have a cyber insurance policy as well. So we see them really scope out the details of the business, and therefore the threat actors now are a lot more aware of what type of fish they're being able to put their hook into. Meaning that if they know that your systems are critical to your operations, which nowadays is the case for most companies, they demand a significantly higher ransom. And they know that you'll be able to pay because they know how much cash you have on hand as well, or how much you're able to afford. So with that being said, we've seen a significant increase in the ransom amount, and with this new wave of ransomware, we've also it's significantly more difficult to also decrypt. Oftentimes backups are also encrypted as well. So the safe haven most companies relied on was not easily accessible. So therefore, this has led to significant data recovery costs, loss of income through business interruption insurance, and also ransom payments as well across the globe. And we'd also like to elaborate on that. This isn't isolated to just a specific region or a country. And what we see with our claims data as Chubb and also as the broader cyber insurance industry is that the claims honestly aren't situated in any specific geography. From an insurance point of view, this is quite interesting because historically as insurers, when you have a catastrophe, it's usually isolated to an earthquake zone or a flood zone or a hurricane zone. With cyber, this isn't the case. So what we see start in maybe the US and North America, we see it in Europe, and we see it through Africa, we see it through Asia. It really does travel the globe. And the type of extortion we're seeing now as well, it's not just limited to just encrypting the data, but it's a lot more sophisticated. So it also exfiltrates personal data as well. So we see a double extortion. So this also drives the necessity to pay ransoms, unfortunately, as well. So these are the increasing levels of sophistication we've seen, which has really rocked the cyber insurance industry. With the examples Turki touched on earlier with WannaCry and Petra, these are mostly uninsured events for the most part. So it didn't affect the cyber insurance industry as much. Whereas the wave of ransomware attacks we're seeing over the past 24 months really has. So what we are seeing as an industry is that we are seeing a hardening in pricing, which means that we are seeing premiums go up and attachment points, attachment points meaning the self-insured retention for policyholders also increase as well. And this is driven solely by the claims environment, in addition to the broader hardening insurance industry as well, which is driven by years of loss cost inflation and low interest rates, requiring insurers meaning that insurers can't earn as high an interest income as they used to, which is driving your policy premiums up across all lines of business. So with that being said, on a final note, I just want to touch on that we have seen our cyber ransomware claims specifically increase 50% from 2019 to 2020, which is a significant jump when we take into consideration where cyber claims have come from since 2016. With that being said, I'll pass it on to the next speaker, Isad Saeed. Thank you. Next slide for Isad Saeed, please.
Good morning, everyone. Yeah, as Adnan introduced me, that my name is Saeed Isad. I'm part of Chubb MENA. I represent financial lines department in MENA region. Which basically does or provides insurance solutions to financial lines products, including cyber. So on this one, I would like to talk about how the market is evolving in MENA market particularly, and what we have seen in previous years that mainly the financial institutions were buying cyber insurance, and mainly the commercial banks. But now, and also there's some big giant conglomerate companies, the companies who are into various businesses. And also we have evidence that there's a telecommunication company, and the companies who are into e-commerce businesses, they were buying the cyber insurance earlier. But now in recent past, and also because of this pandemic, that now the regulatory requirements and the BCP, a lot of companies, BCPs has been revised, that the way of working has changed, the people are working from home, the environment has completely changed, and the companies are mainly investing on employees training, how to protect the organizations and the system from phishing attacks and also social engineering fraud. So basically, they are heavily investing on their employees for training, because if they are working from home, if they are not well trained, so then they can easily get into of clicking some phishing emails, and then they will give an opportunity to hackers to get into the system, and then the hacker will do their desired achievement. So as I was talking about that, the banks and some big organizations were buying, but now in recent past, we have seen that there's a list of the account, or you can say the list of companies who are buying insurance. And I would like to highlight here one more point, that earlier the cyber insurance, basically when we were just putting up some terms and all that and providing cyber insurance to end client, taking a huge time. Basically, they're spending time, sometimes 6-7 months, they just to review the wording and all that, and it's a long negotiation. Then they are going to take a decision. But now the things has changed, and the companies are taking decisions within 2 and 3 months and all that, and just because of the high number of increased ransomware attacks and some phishing attacks within the region. So what we have seen in recent past, that now the construction companies, real estate developers, power plants, hospitals mainly, manufacturing companies, maybe they are into pharmaceuticals, food, steel, and also we have seen in recent past that sea operators are also buying cyber insurance, airport operators are buying cyber insurance, and then we have a number of inquiries, chain of retail stores, that be lifestyle, bookstores, and the pharmacy chain and all that, they are buying cyber insurance. And recent development that the logistic firms are buying, IT firms, law firms, they are just acquiring cyber insurance, accounting firms, research organizations, as well as event organizations, and some big distributors such as car dealers and the business associations. So that's the market evolving. Those people who were just quite confident that their data is safe and then there's no need of cyber insurance. So they are just seriously taking this into their consideration. Their risk management department are focusing on that one, and they are on a daily basis in touch with retail brokers to give them a proper solution in this aspect. And in the GCC, I just learned about recently that the insurance broker, who they are basically are required, particularly in Bahrain, their license, there's a requirement of a license that they have to maintain a cyber insurance for that one. So they cannot renew their license until they have basically the cyber insurance in place. So yes, so I insert another point as well. Now insurance and reinsurance companies are buying also, and also the insurance brokers, as I just mentioned. So these all are things basically, and definitely, and there's earlier that we were not seeing a company who has a revenue of $10 million, that they were not bothering, that they're saying that our system are strong. We are putting up our data to a third-party vendor. They are securing our data. We are securing data. So they were not really keen to buy cyber insurance. But those organizations, the small size, we basically put them in a very SMEs, that they are buying cyber insurance for their company, because they know that. I'll give you one example that in recent of our experiences in insurance claims. For example, if the company had a revenue of $50 million, it's an IT, small IT firm, or you can say that mid IT firm in UAE. Then there's a small incident that basically give us average cost of around $300,000 to $500,000 US. Even though it's in a small company, so because as the Korai mentioned earlier, and that we have to pay the forensic cost, it's very expensive. Then there's a survey cost involved, and then there's a recovery cost involved. Even though there is a small incident and the system is shut down for, I would say, 2 or 3 days, so definitely that's taken through business instruction as well. Even though company is earning only $10 million, but for a single incident, they may have business interruption, they definitely they have to spend cost on the recovery cost. They have to pay extra to third-party specialists who are into basically cyber, IT forensic experts. So they have to do all those things for their system, because when the system breaches, they have to appoint the third-party specialists to basically review their system. Then where there was basically a lacking, and where there was a less of security control. His average cost of for the client and for the people who are running a business is around $250,000 to $300,000. So that's the reason that the pricing, what we are charging, is nothing for the client, but they can easily. This is what I'm talking about, small incidents. But if we talk about any major incident in any big organization who are into business, several businesses, they have several subsidiaries, they have operations in different countries. So then it can go to $1 million, it can go to a $2 million, $3 million, and we have seen a claims of $5 million as well. So yes, so and other point I would like to touch here that particularly GCC is going towards basically modernization and digitalization. They are basically putting their government entities and into digitalization. We have seen several development in UAE now, the Oman, Kuwait, Bahrain. They are following the same pattern. So definitely, when they are moving towards digitalization, that definitely this also it is giving basically easiness or comfort for the client, for the consumer, but definitely it's also giving the opportunity to the hackers to get benefit of that one and to get into penetration of the breach of their system, and to get benefit of extortion money or something, whatever they can achieve that their targets by doing so. So the last point of this slide is ransomware claims across the MENA that's already been touched by global factors and the global incidents by Turkey, and already been touched by the Korea. So I will not get into this, but I would like to highlight here that in recent 1 month, we have seen 2 more new claims. One is in one of the GCC-based hospitals who got attacked by this ransomware, and also the recent claim happened in one of the reinsurance company based in MENA. They also suffered a loss, or there's an incident by ransomware. So as Koray said, that the numbers are increasing. We are on a daily basis that we are receiving basically so a lot of claims, and we are seeing that. So that's not a matter nowadays, that because earlier that I do remember that we big time we started writing cyber, that people are always come to the discounts and reduce and the deductible. Now we have several example, and our pricing, our deductible, our terms and conditions are really basically particularly it's reasonable, and we can justify that why we are charging that money. So yeah, please next slide, please. So underwriting process, it's a very interesting part, basically how we gather the information that in the market. Several proposal forms are there. We have a general idea and all that. For example, I'll give you examples. We receive the proposal form. There are some information is their revenue, how they are managing their risk, and how controls are there. But definitely some information are definitely we need to have a word with the broker, or maybe we arrange a meeting, call meeting with the client, and a face-to-face meeting that discuss their controls. For example, I'll give you an example. If we are writing a business who has businesses in different countries, and they have several subsidiaries, so the proposal form doesn't give an idea that whether the control disclosed in the proposal form are for the specifically the entity mentioned in the proposal form, or are for the whole group. So these are the questions you will not find in any application. So you have to ask extra information in this respect. Then definitely, we have to analyze their incident response plan, that how the document basically which where the IT staff can detect and can respond and can recover from the incident. And then we have we also need to review their BCP plan, business continuity plan. As I told you that after COVID, that there's a regulatory requirement has changed, and the BCP business continuity plan is completely changed. And as it used to be earlier, because now the employees are working remotely, so they have to implement extra security controls, and they have to basically two-factor of authorization of connecting the system. So these are the factors like incident response plan, business continuity plan, and so we need to review, and also the risk management, that how whether the company and whether the organization has security data specific or deputed data security officer in the organization, how they are managing their privacy policies and the data policies, how they're managing, and who are the people who are responsible. And also, we also need to see that whether they are deploying recent security patches to avoid themselves of any recent malware attacks and all that. The system should be updated, regularly should be patched, and also that I said the point that the client meeting and that the employee trainings and all that are more important in that one. So yes, so we need to focus on the IT governance, that how they are managing their IT systems, whether they are their system are placed, and whether they have the redundant system in place, that they have the data on site, and also they have backup, making a backup of the data on the off-site location as well. For example, any mishap comes, so then they can easily recover that data from their disaster recovery site. So yeah, these are the factors we normally review from underwriting process perspective. So yeah, this is how is the rating and the deductibles and terms and conditions are basically are accounted, considering all those factors. And but yes, we also the major factor where the deductible and the premium is focused on is the insured revenue, the size of the organization, and followed by all those factors which we normally basically review it. Yep. Yeah. So that's it for this one.
Thank you so much, Izhar. I would like to mention we have audience from all over the world. We have audience from Lebanon, Pakistan, India. We have some people from Zimbabwe, Saudi, Denmark, Jordan, and Philippines. So it's good that people are joining from all over the world. And I think there are a lot of things which are really eye opener for us, and especially for our audience. Now they will consider looking into getting cyber insurance since they all are exposed, especially during this time. I would like to mention something about Petra Insurance Broker, why you should take policy to Petra, a professional and ethical organization. You can witness that since we are having clients for almost more than 50 years. And if you combine our management experience, we are there for that long time. It's over 100 years, the combined management experience. And we are dealing with multinational companies all across the globe. And we have all the dedicated professionals who are taking care of different lines of insurance, including cyber risk insurance. So I think we'll move to Q&As now. So I'll be waiting for the questions from the audience, and then I'll ask the question one by one. The audience can type the question. You can see a question menu there, and you can start writing in there. I think the questions are coming in. Okay. So we have a first question here. I have a crime policy which provide electronic computer crime. is this the same as cyber? I think Koray, if you can answer this.
Yes, of course. So no, it's not. They cover two separate things, two completely different things. A crime policy only covers money being stolen and nothing else, whereas the cyber policy covers the loss of income and the cost to put the system back to where it was, in addition to any associated increased cost of working. For example, if your factory isn't working, then you may, if not the equipment's working, then you'll have to rent equipment, pay overtime because some tasks will be manual, maybe subcontract or outsource certain business functions or activities just so you can fulfill orders, for example. So they cover completely different things. The cyber policy covers the loss of income and the cost to restore a system, in addition to also providing coverage for the associated IT forensics investigation costs and so forth as well. None of which are covered under a crime policy. Crime policy only covers money which is stolen electronically.
Okay.
Good question, because that is a common misconception.
Yes. There is another question. It's not a question. Nancy is asking, can I request copy of all these topics that are being discussed? Sure, Nancy, you can get in touch with us and we will provide you that for sure. Okay, so we have a next question from Jagan. As an insurance provider, how do you review the cybersecurity in place and how does this impact the premium?
I'll start off with this one. So as Saeed Ishaq touched on earlier, we initially start off with a proposal form, which asks a lot of questions in respect of IT security controls and also IT security governance. So that's a starting base in respect of the controls in place. And then we also take into consideration the business activity and the company size, meaning that if it's a manufacturing company manufacturing Petra chemicals, we know that's different from a manufacturing company which is manufacturing tin products, for example. And taking into consideration the size, the amount of locations, but also the amount of employees can also be a factor as well, because employees are often the weakest link. So we take a lot of these into consideration, and also the controls. If it's a more sophisticated risk, then we will oftentimes require an underwriting call or underwriting meeting where we sit down with the operational risk management and the CISO or an IT security manager or a personnel from the company for additional insights. So we don't we don't conduct any penetration tests and stuff like that, but we do underwrite to whether the policy holder actually conducts their own external penetration tests. So that's an underwriting consideration of ours. So these are the controls we examine.
Thank you, Koray. We have another question from Siddhartha. How do you assess the damage? Do you have resident cyber law experts?
So a damage with a cyber policy can obviously mean different things. So we work with an incident response manager who is a partner to the policyholder in the event of a cyber claim. So when a cyber claim happens, just to give you an example of a ransomware event which leads to a significant loss of data, the costs associated with bringing the system back to where it was is pretty straightforward. If you work with SAP, then you'll need SAP to come in to help with the recovery process, as an example. Not always the case, but as an example. And then obviously the cost of IT forensics is also pretty straightforward as well, where they do a root cause analysis of, where they do a root cause analysis to understand exactly what went wrong and how it went wrong. So, and also to understand where else has the malware actually infected, and the cost to clean the system out. So again, that's pretty straightforward. The loss of income part isn't as straightforward, but it's similar to how business interruption in the property insurance sphere is adjusted. So it's information the policyholder provides to the insurance company. So we take a look at last year's realized financial statements, this year's projections and budgets. All this information which is provided by the policyholder is then taken into consideration to come up with an estimated loss. So the onus here is on the policyholder to provide that information to the insurance company. For example, if you lose various contracts, then that's something you bring to the insurance company's attention. And that's how that part of the loss is adjusted.
Okay, thank you, Koray. We have another question from Roger. Do you see more product development or a customized product for the UAE market?
I'll take this one, and then Shruti, you can provide more insight on the retail side. As a reinsurer, we are willing to work with our clients if they have any requirements. For example, if for example their general counsel requires the language to instead mention something else or mention something a bit differently, then we take that on board. If it's a contract drafting consideration, if it's a coverage consideration, then we'll also take that into consideration. But oftentimes, some of the coverage requests are often covered under other insurance policies as well. So it depends on the request. Turkiye, would you like to elaborate as well?
Yeah, of course. I would like to add that yes, when cyber itself all over the world is evolving, and underwriters being us and insurance company and the insurance company, they are also every day some new things are coming. The learning process is going on. So considering business, as is our touch point, that business size is very important factor. So being us as insurance company, when we see business size, we try to understand insurance needs of actually the risk factors which customer is thinking that they may be exposed, or we from our experience we see that what are the areas they may be exposed. So based on that and based on the requirements, of course, when we go to being insurance company, when we go to the insurance market, of course there are number of reinsurers with whom we are working, and there are number of different wordings, different products are available. So understanding of business risk of the customer, and then discussion with the reinsurers, of course, with say with Chubb or other underwriters, we try to find a customized product actually, which fulfill insured's needs. Here I would like to touch point something that when customer decides to buy a cyber insurance, maybe for me as an underwriter, maybe pricing might be the last part actually. So once you decide to buy a cyber insurance policy, you have to, and being us as an underwriter, we have to understand the risk exposures, like how we can exposed, and how much how much business is critical to IT system, how much your manufacturing is based on your IT system. So these and how much you are exposed to. Maybe Siddhartha earlier asked one question that how we assess. So let me add something here, that before that assessment, that damage assessment, there are many things we need to consider. Incident response is one of the factors. Sometimes if I am a small, let me tell you with my experience being oriented and with the couple, we have seen few claims in past few months and last year. So incident response was one of very key factor. Once you are hit with the cyber, you may not even know that what to do, because it is something you cannot, it is a kind of like someone sitting in your system and you cannot do anything. So incident response is one of very important factor, like how to react, maybe how to go to media about that one. Your reputational damage is one of very important factor, like you may be damaging your reputation, you are losing your customers in the market. And then this was very interesting actually for me, that even to find a root cause is one of very heavy cost. We were having Izhar already told about one of the scenario, that we got to know that only just to find a root cause may cost you hundred of thousands of dollars. So because this is so sophisticated that even maybe sometimes we being insurance company doesn't have that capacity to how to respond. So we have specialized companies. Reinsurance have specialized contracts with such companies, which provide such services in case of someone hits by a claim.
Thank you so much, Koray and Takir. I will go to the next question. It's from Bilal. How to ascertain the right limit of liability for cyber insurance? Let's take example for marine industry.
Well, as Tulki just touched on, this is where your internal risk management should come up with an estimate on how much of a loss would your company sustain in the worst case scenario if your systems were offline for a week or for 2 weeks or for a month. Take that into consideration. Think about the worst case scenario and then taking it back from there, because the worst case scenario is obviously less probabilistic, but account for the worst and then decide on how much of a limit you should be willing to purchase. And as I mentioned earlier, it's not just so thinking about potential potential loss of income, the increased cost of working associated with utilizing a business continuity plan, for example, the cost of recovery, potential cost of IT forensics, reputational fallout, and so forth. If you take all of these into consideration, then you should have an idea. Your risk management, your CFO, your senior management should have an idea of what the potential fallout would be, and use that as a basis for determining a limit.
Thank you, Koray. We have another question from Sunil Matthew. Do you underwrite companies that have commenced operation recently?
It's something we can take into consideration, and there are risks associated with that, and there are also benefits. Benefits meaning that if you recently commenced your operations, then you likely don't have any old or legacy systems. You don't have any unsupported systems, which are usually which can often be the weakest link in the chain. But at the same time, it comes down to you to show that you have all adequate controls in place, that you have a well-established risk management function within the company, and IT security governance in place. So it's a bit of a double-edged sword. It's something we can take on board, obviously, but at the same time, we as underwriters would often approach newly established businesses a bit cautiously, just because the IT security maturity hasn't been set yet. But it's something which could be assessed by not just as us as Chubb, but also as the broader cyber insurance industry. Yes.
So I would like to say to Matthew that there is never too early, there is never too late.
That's a good one, Toki. We have next question. I think it will be for you, and it's hard to answer. It's from Hisham. How do you see the cyber insurance market going in 5 years from now? in UAE and Middle East?
First, let me
Okay,
give an idea about that. How the UAE market is evolving. If we see that, this regulators are very much. We have seen in 2018 there was one of the biggest attack in Singapore, where almost whole of Singapore was being hit by that cyber attack. So after that, they were forced to think about those measures which they can take, and just like a few other countries, the regulators are very much strict now, and they are creating policies for such to tackle those risks. Just like that, UAE market is also slowly, there are the laws are evolving slowly. The regulators are reviewing those laws, and we may see that in next couple of years we may see that the policies may be mandatory from the regulator side, as we see few of the policies are mandatory, like if we talk about financial institutions in DFSA or DIFC, or if we see exchange houses, few of the policies are very much mandatory for them to continue their business operations. Like triple B policy is one of the policy, with electronic computer crime, of course, is mandatory policy for exchange houses and banks. A professional indemnity policy is mandatory from the DFSA to continue their business operations. So market, of course, from the regulator side is evolving, as well as if we see from the business sides. Now businesses are understanding that yes, they are exposed to this risk. This is the risk. They never thought about it. You take property policy, you take liability policy, you take workman compensation, employees liability, marine, FG, money. You have taken all the policies, but still you are missing one of very exposed risk, which may attach to all those policies. So even after taking such policies, you are still exposed. We have seen being Orient UNB insurance, Orient UNB the Capul, we have seen maybe 5 to 6 scenarios in this year from our customers, that where they were having all the policies, but still they were missing that cyber, and they were hit by incidents. So now businesses with the developments in claims in cyber incidents, we are seeing that the demand is increasing for cyber insurance, of course. And in near future we may see from the regulator as well that in next couple of years maybe this is one of the risk which may be mandatory for the businesses to continue their operations. Izhar may give us maybe a bit more idea on this one.
I think, Tokir, we need to move quick because of the time frame, and we are getting a lot of questions. We have to make it short to answer everyone.
I would just like to add in continuation of Tokir's explanation. Time is not too far that we will see that in MENA region, particularly all the GCC countries, will in near future they will implement a privacy law act. The moment it will enact it, so definitely there will be a huge impact on cyber insurance market, and the majority of organizations would be buying that one. And that thing has already been perceived by all the large brokers. If you see the Aon, Marsh, and Lockheed, all the big brands, that they have now a specific team to deal with cyber insurances. So that's the reason, because they have already perceived that there would be a near future would be a huge demand of cyber insurances. So that's the reason that they are investing on their team and all that. So yes, as I told you, that the moment there would be a privacy law, there would be huge demand. And we will also see that as it is implemented in Singapore as well, like you will be getting a call, like as you receive a call for a retail insurances like health insurance or something from as a bank insurance from bank insurance team. They would be selling a cyber insurance to you as a retail. So that time is very, very rare basically. Yeah. Do you have any other questions?
Thank you, Izhar. We'll move to the next question again from Sunil Matthew. What is the minimum turnover criteria of a proposer to obtain cyber insurance?
On our end, it's I'd say a couple of $1 million, but it varies by. But I suppose as the broader cyber insurance industry, there are carriers which would be potentially interested in smaller revenue thresholds. It just depends, really. It really depends. Turkey, maybe you can elaborate on your end, maybe.
Yeah, Matthew, it may start from for cyber as I already said that London market is evolving, and Chubb is of course one of very important part of that cyber and evolving insurance, especially in MENA region. But still there are reinsurance capacities which are available for smaller businesses, SMEs. And there are people actually who likes doing SMEs. So it may start from $1 million. I must say that there is no such particular criteria for turnover criteria for taking a cyber risk policy.
Thank you so much, Takir. We have a next question from Lakshmi. How do we protect sensitive information handled and stored by a third-party vendor?
So the way to approach this, there's a few ways. First of all, you can require your third-party vendors to have minimum controls in place as a part of the contract between your company and theirs. You could require them to share penetration test results. You can mandate them to undertake vulnerability assessments. You can also put it. You can also put in place contractual fines for if there is a breach of personal data by that third-party vendor as well. So you can use that as a mitigating factor for if there is an event, because at the end of the day, your company is responsible for that data as well. And in addition to this, you can require them to purchase professional indemnity insurance. So if they have or a cyber insurance policy as well. So if they fail to store or properly handle your data, then that gives you right to recourse against them and their insurer. So there's a few ways to go about it. Varies, as I said, there's the risk transfer aspect, and also there is the part of it where you require them to have minimum controls in place and for them to evidence those controls to you.
Okay, thank you, Koray. We have a next question from Fadi Saab. What is the claim process in case of a third-party data attack, such as hospitals' customers?
Yeah. So first of all, I want to just clarify the claim. If the claim is against the hospital itself, because the policy works to insure the company. So if a hospital has a cyber event, then it varies by insurance policy and by insurance company. So oftentimes there are hotlines. We at Chubb, we have an application where you can just press notify, and it automatically puts you through to our hotline, which then allows the incident response manager to get in contact with the policyholder within 1 hour usually, to initiate the process. Or you can reach out to your insurance broker as well. You can reach out to your cedent for them to initiate the same process. So there's a few ways to get in contact with the incident response manager to initiate the IT forensics investigation.
Thank you, Koray. We have another question from Fadi Saab. How many wordings are there in the market now?
So there, in the London market, I believe there's around 80 cyber insurance carriers alone, and unfortunately, there is a lot of discrepancy between the policy wordings as well. So not all cover. So there isn't a standard coverage, and this is where you have the advantage of partnering with an insurance broker such as Petra to help you through the differences as well. And Orient as an insurance company are also very, very experienced with also analyzing wordings and deciding which carrier, which reinsurer is the best suited option for the policyholder, because unfortunately there is a lot of discrepancy. There are policy wordings which have conditions precedent, meaning that if you don't patch your systems, within 6 days or within 7 days, the policy is null and void. If you don't maintain adequate security, your policy is null and void. There are these types of carriers. Chubb and most major carriers, so not just us, but most major carriers don't have this type of approach. But you should be aware, if something is too good to be true, then it likely is. So there's likely a catch. So be mindful. Be mindful of the company's reputation for paying claims, not just in cyber but across all lines, but with an emphasis on cyber, the claims handling experience, and also just the company's overall reputation, because these are important factors these are important factors because the contract itself can promise you the world, but if the company isn't the most financially stable entity or doesn't have much claims experience, then the claims management process could be, hell. So you'd want to avoid that, which is why you should always seek advice from your insurance broker, insurance company.
Great. Thank you, Koray. We have another question from Risha. Are there any types of incident that are specifically excluded from the coverage?
Yes, and that's a very good question. So, property damage is excluded. Bodily injury is excluded. These are the main exclusions. In respect of, there are infrastructure exclusions, meaning that if there is a failure in a telecommunications equipment, such as a satellite or a telco, and this leads to a loss of internet or for example, this type of event is excluded. If there is a loss of electricity from a utilities provider, then these types of incidents are also excluded. But the main exclusions are the property damage and bodily injury exclusions.
Okay, great. Thank you, Koray. We have another question from Patrick. How can cyber insurance costs be lowered?
Sorry?
How the cost can be lowered? So how you can reduce the cost? Is there any way where the customers can reduce the cost of cyber liability or cyber risk?
Of course. So first of all, controls and risk management. So if you manage your risk better, then obviously as a reinsurer and as insurers in general, it means we take on less risk as opposed to if you do not. So we do see these types of companies which won't invest in their IT security controls and risk management, but then they'll try to buy cyber insurance. So this is the type of behavior we condone, because risk transfer should be the last step of risk management. But there are insurance companies which might quote this type of business, but with very high premiums and very high deductibles. But at the end of the day, it comes down to risk management governance, and how much you invest into your IT security controls. And obviously, and not just your controls, but also employees as well. So if you train your employees 4 times a year instead of once a year, that will have a positive impact on your cyber risk insurance. Although, just to clarify, we are seeing an increase in premiums, in insurance premiums globally, and we are also seeing an additional increase in cyber insurance premiums for reasons mentioned earlier in this presentation.
Perfect. We have another question. Is reputation harm is covered under the cyber risk insurance?
It depends on how you define reputational harm. And first of all, the costs of working with a PR firm to mitigate any type of reputational event is standard coverage. So that part is. In respect to a loss of income due to a loss of reputation, this can be the insurance industry is willing to take this risk on with additional underwriting information through an endorsement on the policy. So it's not standard coverage, but it's something which the industry is willing to cover with additional premium.
Great, thank you. Koray, we have another question. Is there any policy available for individual for their home cyber coverage, like they have personal data on the phone and their apps? Is there any policy available at the moment or in process for individuals?
There is a whole separate line of personal cyber insurance. Although this isn't something we look at on our end, but coverage does exist. But although I'm not able to comment on the details of the details and the depth of that coverage, but I do know personal cyber insurance does exist.
Let me add something here, Adnan, that being Orient UNB Takaful, we are investing our time on cyber insurance, and the market is evolving. So we are working on a couple of products, which is for personal, which may attach with personal lines policies. So it's a kind of personal cyber insurance, as our audience asked the question, and we have one plan right now under process where we may add this cyber cover, as Koray said, that property damage and bodily injury is the main exclusion under the policy. So with property and liability policies, we may attach that cover to fill the gap. So these couple of plans are under discussion right now, and soon these will be available for the customers through our brokers, of course. So customers may keep in touch with Petra Insurance Broker to know the update, and of course Petra Insurance Broker may guide further on those products in very near future.
Thank you so much, Koray and Taqir. We have another question from Imran. Is there any indemnity period? What is the normal indemnity period?
So the normal indemnity period is 3 months. So that's the market standard. Although if there is a request for a higher period of indemnity, then it's something we as insurers can underwrite to with additional premium and additional underwriting information. So we'd have to understand the risk a bit better.
Okay, can you explain on the indemnity period? What is indemnity period for those who don't understand this? Yeah.
Of course. Sorry, my apologies. So the period of indemnity is specific to the business interruption piece of the policy and the increased costs of working, meaning that in the event of a cyber incident, if a company is affected for, let's just assume, a week, let's just say the cyber incident lasts for a week, but the effects are felt for the next 3 months or 6 months, then we would pick up the loss of income for the 3-month period. So we're not just providing coverage for when the system is offline or partially offline, but for the 3-month period from the moment they initially have the cyber incident.
Got it. Thank you so much, Koray. There is another question. In case of e-commerce functions such as payment processing or data storage are outsourced, is coverage still needed?
Yes, of course, because you as a policyholder, you're responsible for personal data, because that data is initially provided to you. Even if you outsource it to a third party, you are responsible to make sure that third party has adequate security in place. And if they have a failure, then you are liable as well.
Okay.
And it's always difficult to go. It's in case if you have to sue your third party vendor, it's always difficult to take that route. You may have to go to the court for that one before even you are being liable. The first party losses is always first party claims is always simple in nature and quick to pay. Rather you take the route of third party claims.
Exactly.
Thank you, guys. We have another question from Alex. Most of the events noted on the presentation and on the media are about large companies. Therefore, as a small entity, should I need to be worried? I think, Koray, you can answer this, okay.
I'll let Sochi start.
So in the presentation, that was just an idea to give to the audience that even those large organizations which are putting a lot amount of money, they are sophisticated in their systems. They are even exposed to those cyber attacks. Of course, when you talk about small companies, they may be even more prone to such attacks because their IT systems may not be so sophisticated. Maybe lack of training to those lack of training to the employees. What are the phishing attacks? What are the malwares? What are which emails to open? How to respond to the emails? What are the security measures or the security protocols in place? Maybe small companies may lack such things. As Izhar said, when we talk about large companies, they may have BCP and business continuity plan and disaster recovery plans are in place. So they may have resources to create that disaster recovery plans. So if I tell you, being an insurance company, that if we see proposals from industry, and I'm talking about small medium enterprises, SME proposals, maybe 90% of the companies have never put a thought on BCP and disaster recovery plan. So when in lack of BCP and DRP, they may be more prone to those large organizations. And we have seen claims actually from small entities in past few years. So of course they are very much prone to those cyber attacks, and this coverage, the internal improvement of the IT system, as well as cyber insurance being an umbrella coverage for them, is as important as for large organizations.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I second that, and I just want to add that what we're seeing with claims across the globe, it's regardless of the company size. The same sophisticated malware used to bring down a multi-billion-dollar organization costing them hundreds of millions of dollars. We're seeing the same strain of malware affecting an SME as well, extorting them for hundreds of thousands and causing significant damage there as well. So And in fact, we are actually seeing our loss data, our claims data shows that there are more claims affecting the SME segment than there is with large multinationals. And the reason for that is also because mostly driven by that there are more SMEs as well. So these companies oftentimes aren't as well equipped to defend against such claims, and therefore are easy pickings for these cyber criminals, unfortunately, because they just don't have the investment readily available for advanced cybersecurity controls or personnel as well. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Tokir and Koray. I think we don't have much time left. So I would like to thank the audience for attending our webinar. Hope you enjoyed as much as we did presenting it to you. And I would like to thank to our speakers, Koray, Tokir, Izhar. We believe we have answered all of your questions. And in case we miss anything, you can just reach out to us and we'll be happy to answer. We'll be sending a survey shortly after this webinar. You can participate in that too. Once again, thank you so much, and do share your feedback. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thanks, everybody.
Everyone.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everyone.